Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. Today we're going to talk about summer programming and exercise, posture, what is good posture and how do you improve it, and what is the difference between an anterior and a posterior pelvic tilt and why that's important for cheerleaders. If you don't know me, I'm Laura Turner, aka the LP, the Cheer PT. I'm a physical therapist, I'm a strength coach, and I help cheerleaders improve performance, reduce the risk of injury while staying healthy and on the mat through my exercise programs and workouts that help get you stronger and teach you how to move better. My company is called Move Better Physical Therapy and Fitness, and in it I work as a physical therapist and do manual work and stretching, and I teach a lot of exercise. I'm very passionate about teaching people how to move correctly and not just push through a movement and not know what they're doing. I think that's super important. And as we start to talk about summer programming, I just want to put that out there because not every exercise program is great for everyone. And there's a lot of stuff out on the web, my stuff included. My stuff is not for everybody. But there's a lot of stuff out there that we see and we're like, that's great, we should do that. But if somebody doesn't have the ability to do that, doesn't have the mobility, the stability, the strength, which you hear me talk about all the time. And if you haven't been following me, go back and check out. I talk about this. You can find information on Instagram or Facebook as well. But if we don't have the right movement and we can't do something correctly with good form, we just set ourselves up for risk of injury. Jim, what does good form mean? Posture. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go, but that you're not hiking through your shoulders as you're trying to do something, that if you're stretching your hamstrings, you're not cranking and pushing back and rotating and the opposite leg is popping up. Now, it does happen that the opposite leg will pop up if the hip flexor on the down leg is tight, but the key is not pushing through and go to the limit where that doesn't happen and start to train that, as well as training in and out full motion and learning where your body feels the best. So that's my specialty, and that's how I help people. And I use different strength and conditioning programs to help get there. If you watch me on social media, this is the stuff I talk about, and this is what I really want to help cheerleaders do better at, because to be a better flyer or a base or a tumbler or even in your jumps, you need to know how to move, and you need to know what it's supposed to feel like when you're moving. Because when you don't, you're not going to keep progressing, or you're going to just force through and you're going to look kind of yucky up in the air. That's my technical PT term, yucky. Let's talk summer programming. Now is the time, right? We have 2 months left before school starts for high school and youth cheerleading. I mean, youth cheerleading probably starts in the beginning of August. So now's the time that we are really diving full on into strength and conditioning. Now is the time that we need to be working on our plyometrics, our power. That plyometrics are jumping exercises. So like box jumps and squat jumps, or squat jumps with a quarter turn, single leg hopping, both forward and backwards, lateral bounds where it's like a side lunge that like a skater, you jump to the side, land on one leg and stick and land it and jump to the other side. Really working on that power. Power exercises, plyometric exercises should be about 5 repetitions, 6 repetitions per set, and do 3 to 4 sets of that. We're not doing heavy volume of jumping, but we're really focusing on the form, the landing, the stick of the motion, and developing that power in our legs. Plyometric push-ups are another great exercise, especially for bases and tumblers, to develop that strength that we are, you do a push-up and then explode off the ground. Now, if you're really good and you're strong, you explode off the ground and do a clap, or do it up onto a box and jumping down. There's a ton of different ways to incorporate plyometrics. One way I love that is actually, I think it's great if you can't do a push-up, take a huge medicine ball, not one that's squishy. I tried that. It didn't work well. It got very flat and didn't work well. A big, huge Dynamax is my favorite. And you, at like 10 pounds, it doesn't have to be heavy, come overhead and slam it into the ground as hard as you can. Call it ball slams. You can do wall balls. Ball slams, they work on really getting that core. You work from extension to flexion. And then take that, superset it, which means do it right before you do a push-up, and see if that helps to make your push-ups a little better, if your core is a little stronger in your push-up. So those are some plyometric exercises or other wall exercises, ball exercises. The good thing about the ball exercises where you're throwing against a wall, you're throwing a ball to another person to get that explosive push and power, or even overhead and tossing, is you're going to develop a little bit of eye-hand coordination. And you're going to be accepting load as you catch it back in, which if you're a base, that's super important. So along with plyometrics, we want to be able to do strength work. I should back up. Before we get to strength and before we get to plyometrics, you're always going to do your warm-up. And that does not include static stretching, because you've been listening to me and you know that static stretching is going to inhibit your muscles before your workouts. So if you feel the need to stretch, get there 5 minutes early, run through your stretches, do some foam rolling should you choose. Then you're going to get into your dynamic warm-up. You're going to get into bridges and leg lowers. Maybe you hold your leg up with a strap and raise the opposite leg up and down. You can do some crawling, 5 feet-ish. For warm-ups, I like the reps of 5. You don't have to do 1,000. If you feel like doing a little bit more, go for it. Come up into stand, do those high knee runs and butt kicks and Frankenstein walks and scoops, lunge walks with rotation, about 20 feet for those. If you've gotten, I like to also add in some skipping, because I think that adds some dynamic, and you can go forward, sideways, and backwards. And that'll incorporate everything. That's your warm up. You're ready to go. You got a little agility work in there at the same time. You could then get into, then I would get into your plyometrics. Then I would get into a little bit of agility work. Or maybe you superset your plyometrics with your agility. So agility is training your feet and your coordination and just kind of that quick step. Why is that important for cheerleading? If you've ever seen a cheerleader holding a stunt walking across a mat, it needs a lot of agility. Sometimes they have to cross over, sometimes they have to sidestep. They need that footwork, and they need to know where their body is in space to be able to react quickly. It's also important for flyers because it trains a lot of ankle mobility and strength, and trains the hips, and it's just good conditioning. So you could do ladder drills out and in. You can do alternating toe taps. You could come to a box and tap, or a step, and tap one foot up and then the other foot up, and trying to go as quick as possible, maintaining as good form as you can. Then you're going to get into your strength work. Strength routines should include a knee exercise, a hip exercise, a core exercise, a pushing upper body, a pulling upper body, a carry, and a split stance, or a single, split squat, lunge, or a step up, any of those. So things like squatting, deadlifting, push-ups, pull-ups, shoulder presses, all of that works in there. We all know there's tons of core exercises. I won't dive into why I'm not a fan of crunches for core exercises. I'm starting to do them a little bit more myself because it's changing it up, but that works a little bit more external core. I am getting into that. You need to really work those planks, things that you're holding your core still while you're moving your arms and your legs, and building up that general stability that way. Carries, a farmer carry, a suitcase carry, a waiter carry. So a waiter carry is excellent. That's when you're holding your arm at 90 degrees. And then you have a tabletop at the top, so you keep good straight wrists. You use a weight or a kettlebell. It's going to work on your wrist strength. It's really going to work on that shoulder stability. Excellent exercise for flyers because it mimics where you are in transition. And any kind of carry like that you're working on keeping your body still while you're holding weight in your arms, will help to develop some core strength and gives you a different challenge than basic core exercises. Split squats, that's like kneeling on the ground, standing up and going back down. So a lunge, a regressed version of a lunge, or lunging forward, backwards, sideways. We should be working on single legs and double legs, intermixing that through the week. That's your workout. You can work on 2 sets of 12, 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, 4 sets of 6. It kind of depends on where you are in your training and what your next goal is. That workout should go for about 4 to 6 weeks. And Over the course of those 4 weeks, you're increasing your weight and you're challenging yourself a little bit more through that. Maybe you go slower if you don't have weight, or maybe if it's getting super easy, then you bump your rep range up. And then you mix that strength workout around every 4 to 6 weeks. And it doesn't have, you're going to keep the same core basic exercises, but you're going to mix up how you're doing them. You're going to mix up your rep range. You're going to maybe do it on a BOSU, an uneven surface versus on the floor. Or maybe you're going to do a rotational squat to get more into the hip rotators and get rotation to build more stability at the same time. There's so many different ways that you can do this to create the program. And then you're going to end your workouts with what everybody loves to do, a stretch. If you are home and you don't do a workout, you stretch at the end of the night. You're not going to crank into it. You should do a little bit of warm up to make sure you're not super stiff and tight, but do a nice gradual rocking back and forth, then hold the stretch, and then do a little rocking back and forth again. So you continue to get that muscle to know that, hey, I could only go here before. Now I can go here. So I could only go here before. Now I can go here, but I need to keep working that in and out so that I can maintain that full range motion that I just gained. That's your workout. How often should you do it? Minimum of twice a week. In the summertime, when you're not in the gym as much or you're not going to hardcore as much, you should be getting a strength workout in probably 4 times a week. Anywhere from 2 to 4. I like to alternate. I give 2 workouts in a month, and you alternate AB, AB. And if you are only doing twice, you do AB. And if you're doing 3 times, it's ABA, and the following week is BAB. And if you got 4, then you're alternating back and forth. And that way you are working each muscle group twice. You are training a pattern. In those, you're getting some balance work through your single leg exercises. You're getting different planes of movement in there. And you're working your full body. You get some conditioning, some plyometrics, and you're really working on building that endurance. Now, on the off days or at the end of your strength workout, you're going to do some conditioning. So if it's end of your workout and you're gassed because you just put it all in to your workout, that's amazing. Good job. Do a 10-minute quick HIIT workout. Jump rope. Jump rope on for 30 seconds and off for 30 seconds, or jump rope for 2 minutes and off for 1 minute. You could sprint. That sprinting, like uphill sprints, like run up a hill and walk down, and do that 10 times. You could kettlebell swing if you've got good form and you've got the mobility and you know how to do that. It's a great exercise to build endurance. And maybe you do 3 minutes because you do 10 repetitions for a total of 3 minutes, and you do 10 repetitions and rest for a short amount, like 5 seconds, and do another 10. So you're working that 3 to 6 minute time frame, and it's quick, just like you're on the mat. I see a lot that captain's practices are starting. And I will admit, I used to have my cheerleaders do captain's practices because in Massachusetts, coaches aren't allowed to work with their cheerleaders or their athletes through the summertime. They can have some contact, I think they can contact, and the rules may be different now, but we used to be able to contact, but we couldn't actually go and have a formal practice. So sometimes I might show up and say, hey, what are you guys doing today? But mostly the captains would run practices. My issue is they're young. They're not experienced. They maybe they've come up through the ranks and learning, but do they know, is somebody doing a squat correctly? Are they watching their teammates have good form and making sure their knees aren't dumping in, or that their back isn't leaning forward, or that they're not shrugging through their shoulders and creating a pinch through their shoulder. So I think it's important to have somebody supervise and watch, especially athletes younger than 16, because they just don't have that experience and they don't have the body awareness yet. And I think it's important for 16 to 24 as well, but they can be a little bit more autonomous and get after their workouts. It's important to train these athletes, to listen to what their body feels like when they're doing exercise. Having muscle fatigue is normal. Having ouch pain is not. Having joint pain is absolutely not. But muscles, things are working a little bit and they're strained, that's normal. So I don't think that peers on the team and captains have the knowledge yet. I'm sure they will get there. I'm sure they are very smart in what they do and they enjoy it, to really focus on that. So it ends up being more of a HIIT workout, crank through our push-ups, let's do our jump shots, let's do our straddle ups, and then we're going to run till we puke. That's what I used to see on my team when I was coaching prior to coming in and saying, like, stop this. We're not doing this. You got a circuit here, do this work. No one, if you're going to puke, you stop. It's 90 degrees outside. You should not be running in the heat. Like, let's make our workouts early in the morning and get them over with so that we're done. We've got it in, and we're not going to pass out from a heat stroke. And if you're a coach listening to this and you don't want to have somebody like myself supervise and oversee what your athletes are doing, then encourage your captains to really make sure they follow guidelines for weather and that their teammates are hydrating, that they are not meant to work out until they puke, and they're not meant to push their muscles until failure and fall where they're falling and risking an injury. I'm very passionate about that because I think that's one area that we can easily correct that will help athletes reduce the risk of injury in the long haul. So I have a summer program. It starts next week. There's education involved in that, but as well, there's a workout. There's 3 months of workouts. There are live workouts by Zoom that will do a mobility class to improve that mobility and flexibility and control in that time, as well as a strength class, and we'll work together. They're not going to be long workouts, but they will be to help. I can watch and show you how to do it, and we'll go through a full workout so that you know what a full body workout is. I don't have the space to do a lot of plyometrics, but I can certainly teach, and we can talk about that as well. So if you're interested, send me a message. You can email me directly, laura@movebetterllc.com, or link will be in the show notes that you can contact me there as well. Get after your summer workouts. Now's the time. Whether or not you work with me, your kids need to be strength training right now, and creating that. Now's the time to work on that mobility to get better stretches and really develop the balance and coordination so that when the season and full-on practices start, it's much easier. All right, I had a question in the clinic again today, more of a comment that I turned into a question. One thing she said is she's like, the thing I really learned a lot from you about is posture. I'm like, that's great, because I talk about posture all the time. And we've talked about posture all the time. What's the one thing that you're taking away? And it crushed me because she said, I need to just stand up straight. I'm like, okay, we want you to be straighter, yes, but what is the process of getting there? Posture is not just about standing up straight. Posture is not about pulling the shoulders back, pushing your hips forward, and walking with a book on your head. Our bodies are not meant to just hold still and move in that. So you can see, I'm moving around all over the place if you're watching this video. We move. Every step we take, we move in 3 different planes of movement. And our body needs to be able to do that. So if we restrict it and we just hold and we force that upright, then our body doesn't learn how to move through full range. Good posture is being able to stand with the least amount of tension through our muscles and our joints. So sometimes it might be here because that's decompressing in this least amount of tension in through the neck. Most of the time it's not here. Like, we don't want to see somebody sitting on a computer being there, but they need to be able to move that way as well as pulling back. So if you're listening, pushing my chin forward and pulling my chin back, then you need to be able to move in and out of that. Same with the shoulders. We need to move forward and back, up and down, and the spine. We need to be able to forward bend, side, rotate, and our hips need to do the same. And so what I wanted her to take away is that, yes, it's important to work on your posture, but having good posture means being able to move freely in and out of movement without creating tension through your body. And then at rest, that we can just rest in a neutral position and be stacked and not have tension in our body. So when we're working, when we're flying, we need to create that tension through our legs, through our core, all of that. When you're basing, the same thing, you got to pull your ribs down and get into position to get things active. But we need to teach our athletes to be able to come out of that so that they're not just gripping and holding that all the time. I talk about this a lot in my centered course, which is it's a self following course, and we talk about why posture is important, what creates good movement. We'll go through a whole mess of exercises to help create that movement. We all get stuck in sitting through the day, or driving for long distances, or being on our computers, or watching TV, or being in one position and not moving, and things stiffen up. So we need to create this mobility on a whole. In Centered, I talk about ways to incorporate that into the day and give a bunch of different exercises. The key takeaway: make sure posture isn't static, it's movement, and we need to be able to move throughout and move in and out of those positions so that when we rest, we are comfortable. Someone on Reddit was asking about doing exercises in different strengths. They have to correct a tilt in their pelvis. And they said they have to correct a posterior. They want to work on their hollow position by working on their anterior tilt. So I just want to clarify, in case you're questioning what is an anterior versus a posterior tilt. When we're talking at the pelvis, there are two bones on the front of the pelvis. So if you're standing, it's easiest. But if you're sitting and listening to this, in the front of your hips, those two bones right there, they're called the most prominent ones. They're called the ASIS, and they should be level like this. In the back, if you put your hands in the back and go into like where those dimples are in your back, you'll feel two pieces of bone back there. And that's called the PSIS, posterior superior iliac spine, and anterior superior iliac spine. They should be relatively level when we're in stand. And so if I look at you from the side, so you're looking at me from the side here. This hand, my left hand is my ASIS, the front. My PSIS is in the back. So an anterior tilt would be the ASIS is going to drop forward and the PSIS is going to move up. That's like sticking your booty out. That's an anterior tilt. It causes compression through the back, creates, it does create extension, which can be helpful at times too. It's not a bad thing. We're meant to anterior tilt. Conversely, a posterior tilt is when that back bone in the right above your butt, that dimple, that moves backwards, that moves down. So the PSIS, posterior superior iliac spine, moves down, and the anterior superior moves up. That's a posterior tilt going in the direction of the posterior superior iliac spine. So tucking your bottom under, getting into a hollow position is more of a posterior tilt that's coupled with ribs down. Why is this important to know? Because some people in the clinic all the time like tip your pelvis forward, and they constantly do a posterior tilt. It's important to know for cheerleaders, because if we're teaching hollow position, they need to learn how to isolate that. And the people that commented on this post were spot on. They need to learn, we need to learn how to do that. We need to learn how to correct it. But what I didn't like is that they called the anterior and posterior tilt the problem, and that's not the problem. It's not being able to move in and out of that. It's not being able to find a better position to create the hollow position and get your core engaged, or even just create a neutral postural where the least amount of tension is pressure through your back and your hips. Muscles that attach and control what happens with the anterior and posterior tilt, the hip flexor muscles, your rectus femoris, which is a quad muscle. You'll have those two are your primary muscles that are going to pull you anteriorly. And then posteriorly are going to be your hamstrings and your glutes. And I think other muscles will lead into that as well, as far as around the hips go. But in the front to back motion, those are hip flexors and hamstrings and glutes. That's why I teach you need posterior tilt when you go to stretch your hamstring, because that's going to put the distal portion on length, the lower part by the knee. Other muscles that attach there, you have, there's the iliacus, which is above the hip. That's like a short, gnarly little hip muscle that flexes the hip. So there's multiple hip flexor muscles basically. And your abdominal muscles, your transverse abdominis, your internal and external obliques, as well as your rectus abdominis, which is that six-pack muscle that works with crunches that attaches down at the front of the pelvis. On the back side, we have multifidi will extend the back. They are a little bit more along the spine than on the pelvis. You have a QL. Those are muscles, they're like on the side, they go from your rib cage down to your hip. Traditionally, we think of them as just, they kind of go side to side. So if you hike and drop your hip, that motion, or side bending, but they also extend your spine. So they're going to work on bringing you back into that anterior tilt, tipping backwards, along with glutes and hamstrings again. And so it's important. You don't need to know all those muscles. That's my job. You don't, it's okay if you're talking, if you're thinking, okay, I'm doing an anterior tilt and you're really actually doing posterior, so long as you know the reasoning behind the cue there. So if you're a coach or parent coaching your cheerleader to anterior tilt in a hollow hold position that they need for a full, or for a handspring, or for a round off, or handstand, you're doing them a service, because an anterior tilt is actually sticking your booty out. And so if there's a miscommunication between the two of you, it's going to go over their head and they're not going to get it. Learning how to move that and find that anterior and posterior tilt, and finding that neutral and finding that relaxed position will be the key to creating better movement all around. And this is all stuff, the other ways that you can work with me to learn this and really dial in. Are you moving anterior, posterior? Can you hike and drop your hip? Can you shift your pelvis? Can you rotate? And can you isolate that? I do one-on-one sessions, do one-on-one personal training, do movement and all of that. So, there's ways. If you, we're going to go over this in the upcoming flexible and fearless and flexible flyer program, the 4-week that starts on July 8th, 2024. So we'll go through all of that. We'll go through all the centered exercises, which will talk you through what movement is supposed to feel like, what you're supposed to feel in your body, and go through a whole workout on top of that. So isolating movements so that you can move better when you go to lift, but then more importantly, building on that strength when you go on to be up in the air, and basing and flying and jump and tumbling and all this stuff. And if you're not interested in any of that, but you want to learn more exercises and get more exercise instruction, I have a cheer membership, cheerleading health exercise education resource. And that membership is $29 right now. And we'll go through, you'll get weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly, twice a month trainings that I can answer your questions directly, as well as doing the workouts and giving more training as we go through the month. So any of those are ways that you can learn how to correct your posture, build a strength and conditioning program, get stronger, gain flexibility, learn body control and body awareness, and learn the lingo along the way, because I think that's important. And it took me a long time to get there. Lingo isn't the big deal. It's learning how to do things correctly and feeling good in your body, and knowing that you need to feel good while you are doing what you're doing. And if something hurts, to be able to come out of that and still find the movement that does feel better and feel good. Because sometimes things are going to hurt. It doesn't have to be an injury, but if we can find a way to correct that movement, all the better. I have a favor. I asked this in the Health and Wellness for Cheer Athletes group yesterday. I'm looking for volunteers to do Zoom calls with me that will go through an assessment. We will go through, not really an assessment, but a movement screen to see where you're at, and then give you some exercises to work on that, and then maybe come back later and do a follow-up to see, did these exercises work? And where do we need to tweak, and what do we need to go through with that? It's free. I will do probably one a week, but I think that will help. You can let me know. Do you think that would be helpful for you? We can make that part of the Cheer Athlete podcast. I'll definitely put it up on YouTube and on Instagram as well. But I think that'd be helpful for people to see what it is, what it should look like, and what it should feel like. And and there's no charge. It's a volunteer. Um, and you just would have to work with me and be okay with talking with me through Zoom. If you're interested, again, send me a direct message. You can find, you can direct message me on Instagram or Facebook, or you can send me an email, whatever is the easiest way that for you. And if you know somebody that would be interested, pass this information along. Y'all know that I have a bunch of free resources out there. If there's something that you're looking for that you just want a quick little sample of a video or other exercises, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to do some videos, and that gives you a one-off, this is how to improve X, Y, and Z. Because sometimes that's all you need is just to kind of go through a specific one exercise, like the movement screen that I just recently did with people, and the warm-up routines that we did. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I would love to know what your biggest takeaway is. Are you doing some workouts? Are you doing the workouts with your captains? And do you have a strength and conditioning coach? And what do you love about it? What do you not love about it? So reach out. Let me know. Leave me a comment if you're watching on YouTube. I think you can do it on Spotify as well. So let me know. And if you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe so that more people can listen to this and more people can start to learn how to move and feel better. And that you make sure you don't miss the next episode. These come out every Wednesday, and I've been pretty consistent. I think I was a little bit late last week. So sometimes life gets in the way. I hope you have a wonderful 4th of July. Summer is the best time of year, July 4th through August 31st, through Labor Day. I think that's the best time of year. Maybe it's because I was born in August, and I just love the summertime. I love all seasons, but the summertime to me is awesome, these next 2 months. So 4th of July, there's no stress. You can just get out and have a good time, enjoy the barbecue, relax. If you're in a pool, do some jumps in the pool so that you feel like you're doing some cheer stuff, but just have fun with it. Relax and enjoy. Enjoy the time with your family. And if you're not in the US and you're listening to this, celebrate anyways, because it's summertime, and who doesn't love party in the summertime for the 4th of July? Have a wonderful week, everyone. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. You can do anything you put your mind to. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Go get the day.